Keeping well. It's Sunday, July. The weather has been kind of disappointing in the UK and Ireland, but some reason here in the west of Ireland, it's been still fairly warm. This area of the west of Ireland, anyway, it's still been quite warm and humid. And I was at a beautiful wedding with a friend's wedding at Westport in County Mayo this weekend, and it was nice. It was very nice, and I had to have the air conditioning on in the hotel because it was that hot, that humid. But yeah, it's the weather's not too bad. It's changeable, but it hasn't gotten really cold like it has in some parts of the country. Or my friends in England were telling me. But I hope everybody's happy and you're enjoying life and everything else. A few things to talk about today. Uh, where do you where do you even start on today? Important thing is that we're here. We always remind yourself of that. We survived that appalling lockdowns and all that stuff and all the evil sadomasochistic lunatics out there, and we transcended them all and beat them all and robbed them of their dreams to enslave us quickly as they have. There's lots to be hopeful for. 2023 is turning out to be a fabulous year for us who in the alt scene. A lot of what we've wanted is coming true. I see the government of Holland has collapsed because of their shenanigans with the globalists and the farms. Uh, I mean, like Pride Month was a complete flop. So much of a flop, they had to have an Intersex day in Dublin yesterday, and it was unbelievable how the Irish national media, now it's radio television, RTE, the Irish national TV radio broadcaster, is in a really bad way at the moment. So they're desperate to get any allies they can, but there's also a Lord Ha Ha thing going on that they'll be promoting globalism and wokeness until they're swinging from the gallows. And yesterday there was this bizarre intersex thing in Dublin. The TV reporters being a few hundred. By the time the Irish Times got on it and put it as a special feature, mentally ill people who castrate themselves, it had magically transformed into several thousand. It was just like the opposite of the lockdown events. There was thousands and thousands of people who wanted the lockdowns to end, and the same two media outlets, the Irish Times and RTE, both Soros Foundation, Open Society, globalist rigged outfits. They at war with the Irish people. Remember that when RT and the Irish Times fluff all these castratos and mastectomy sex freaks that were that were marching in Dublin yesterday. Remember, that's an open declaration of war upon the Irish people and their values. Remember, the regime in Ireland, and it's most probably the same if you live in a Western country, it's probably the same in your country, is an occupational force that's attacking you on behalf of the likes of the Soros Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Economic Forum, and the Clinton Foundation. So always remember that. And all those NGOs, they're all local police forces working for the regime to undermine you. So that local, we're going to call it Stony Batter for All, or these other NGOs, you think of them as the Black and Tans. They're the British, the old days to the British spies in the neighbourhood. That's what you're dealing with. But anyway, it was an absolute disgrace, the thing that they showed in Dublin yesterday. The people, it's amazing how they interviewed ones that they thought would make the movement look normal, and they interviewed ones who were clearly unhinged. You could just tell a lot of them were just autistic, just by they had that kind of autistic walk and sort of body language. And I feel really sorry for these people because they're being told to castrate themselves and cut off their tits by, it said, Mengele type psychiatrists and sexual perverts in the teaching profession and so on. And ultimately, as I said, it's an attack. The reason why they get Pride Month and then the following the Saturday afterwards is an intersex castration fetish day is an attack on the Irish people. Remember that the two politicians in charge of Ireland right now, Leo Varadkar and Micheál Martin, are they're actually at war with the Irish people. Always remember that. If they weren't at war with the Irish people, such fiascos wouldn't be shoved in our face. And RTE and the Irish Times are Lord Ha-Ha things. But of course they've lost. They're not going to win. And because you can't defeat natural law. Natural laws, the truth is the truth. That's the end of it, You cannot defeat that. You can be hysterical and shouty and lie and, and stamp your feet and create any kind of hysteria and smear campaign you want, but it won't make natural law budge. That pendulum will always swing back into equilibrium. And I was just thinking about something there the other day. I was looking at the city crest of Dublin, the herald, the crest of the city, and it's three castles, and it looks like the towers are on fire, but they're not on fire. They're beacons, like in Lord of the Rings. And the beacons are, if one of the garrisons in the city is attacked, no matter what the differences or grievances between the rest of the garrisons, they will come to defend the city. And I was just looking at the three castles on the Dublin city crest with their beacons lit to defend each other. And it just dawned on me, East Wall, Ballymun and Finglas. Amazing, isn't it? So next time you look at the crest of the city of Dublin, those three castles are East Wall, Ballymun and Finglas, protesting the open borders and the invasion of our city against their will. You have every right to protect your community. Every right. Don't ever let anyone tell you don't. Now, so that was the kind of an interesting thing. It was kind of like, the gnosis thing that comes out of, like, when you're in a kind of, like, when you work in magic, gnosis becomes a rolling concern. You see, the fundamentals of magic is that it's done in absolute secrecy. So that's why people who publicly hex other people, they're damned, because it wasn't done in secrecy. It's called the occult for a reason, you stupid fucks. And that's what happens. It's done in absolute and total secrecy. If it's a personal thing, all those idiots who took part in the Trump binding spell and videotaped themselves doing it, they're all damned. In fact, I think that happened. And how did that happen? Needlecraft. They would have all took the needlecraft as a note of loyalty to the regime. But that's what the needlecraft and the face nappy is, an oaths of loyalty to the regime. And so they would have all taken that. And talking about that, it's off the scale now. I mean, I know I say this every video I make, the numbers are increasing. I counted on my road yesterday 9 ambulances. The previous record, 8. 8 ambulances. The previous record was 5. It's now that the summers kick in, a lot of people going swimming. It's outdoor sports, that kind of thing. Going on holiday, dropping like flies. And of course, it's not reported by the media. It's hidden deliberately on purpose, and that's why the regime, your enemies in government buildings, push the enemies in government buildings out to destroy you, your children, and your family. Push these things like drag queen story time on you. Speaking of which, I was in that bookshop yesterday, where that drag queen story time thing was held. A nice little bookshop. And it didn't have an LGBTQ2 section. I wonder why. I didn't notice it anyway. It wasn't advertised for all the other sections. But again, Pascal O'Donoghue, the Minister of Finance, he'll never live down the fact that he gave this impassioned speech with practically tears rolling down his eyes, defending his belief that children should be sexualized as soon as possible. And we all have to ask the question, why? Well, we know the answer, don't we? And he was front and centre at the Pride Parade in Dublin. It's just a pure weasel. And they're all like that. They're all scum. They're all vermin. There's no one to vote for. There's just only the parallel society. Speaking of which, some very positive developments in the parallel society stuff. Businesses all over Ireland are going cash only. And GB News in England has started this thing, the right to save cash, or the campaign to save cash. Wonderful. But something very interesting development in that. The There was pubs and restaurants in neighbourhoods in Dublin who've all gone mutually decided, well, amongst themselves, to go cash only, the fight for cash. And it's hilarious when they have these purple-haired freaks, these foot soldiers at the regime, screaming tantrums because they can't pay with a card, because they love their slavery. They'll look at them, they cut their tits and their bollocks off for the regime. That's how much they love them. But that was just a well-known religious thing, Scarfism, and the extreme flagellance of the ancient early Christian world. So we're back again to that thing. But the banks have started to approach, and this is a very interesting development. The banks have very busy businesses like big pubs and restaurants in Ireland that have gone cash only. The banks have offered them an ATM to put inside the place. Now, that's actually an excellent compromise. So the ATM can be used to withdraw cash for the businesses cash only. So so if someone comes in with a card and orders like a pizza or a curry and a pint, and the guy goes, it's cash only, and he says, oh, okay, I'll go over to the ATM. Now, that's the parallel society. Go to the ATM, and that way the banks, we're always looking for their gravy. The transaction fees they don't get from using the credit or debit card, they get from using the ATM. So it's a win-win-win thing. Us in the cash out culture can still get our cash, and people who are using cards are forced to use cash by going to the ATM, and the business and the banks get their payday. I have no problem with that. No problem at all. So that's the answer to saving cash, is the banks will always function according to I mean, we saw that here in Ireland when Allied Irish banks tried to go cash free with something like 40 or 50 branches in the southeast of Ireland. There was nearly a revolution, to the point where the government had to issue an apology on behalf of a private bank in the government buildings. So this is the cash thing is something we can really win, because if the banks are worried about losing money, they'll listen to us more than they listen to the politicians and the globalists. Just like lots of things, like, see, don't ever think that you're doomed. That's why you should stay away from these truthers who are afraid of fingers. Truthers are afraid of fingers and hands. Truthers they're tormented by fingers and hands. Satanic fool, Saga. Well, oh, it's a big club and you're not in it. Satanic. And triangles. They're tormented by triangles. Maybe it's a sexual thing. The triangle is a vagina, and the fingers are, your man from 3, 2, 1. He must have been really good at sex, that guy. But yeah, they've never been fingered. That's a good song. That's like a good song for like a torch song. I'm a truther, and I've never been fingered, so I'm afraid of digits, 'cause I've never been fingered. I see a triangle, and it reminds me of a bush that's not getting occupied, or even getting fingered. Yeah, so that's what there's some weird shit going on. They're afraid of fingers and triangles, so fuck them. So stay away from them, and these doomers and all that stuff. It's not like that at all. The proof is, it went from "you won't have a choice" to him to Gates on TV going, we didn't get the mandatory needlecrafts every year with the passport. It was a big disappointment. Why? Because you said no. Remember that. And this will do the same thing with the cash. We'll say, you're keeping cash out there. And the government bureaucrats will go, but according to the banks will go, fuck the WEF. We'll go with the cash. We don't want to lose it. We don't want to lose half our customer base. There's also lots of things. And governments can't win either because if people went to barter, they wouldn't get their revenue taxes. So the cat like the battle we won against the needlecraft passports, and I could see all the doom troopers now going, "Start! They're going to bring it back. It's just a start. They're going to have a big old lockdown. Titanic form." It's fingers and triangles. Do do do. Oh yes, I saw her today. I saw her face. It was a face I hated, and I knew I'd have to run away and get down on my knees and pray to Tataria, 'cause fingers and triangles, do, 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 do. Fingers and triangles. Ian's looking at me over there. But he's like, but, what was I going to say? Yeah. Yeah, so we won that one. We can win the cash one. The cash one's a very winnable one, very winnable. There's your player, and your ATM is like a parallel society. So it's like, wow, let's go for it. So yeah, that's a very winnable one, very winnable one. But to see the Irish TV reporting on the Intersex parade yesterday, so we had a month of Pride plus an encore they give us, and they were reporting on it like it was the Irish Day of Independence. These people came together. I was waiting for Misha Aaron soundtrack to start playing. The orchestral suite. That's what these head cases are like. That's what these head cases are like. But and we'll always beat them because natural law is on our side. This is also why they hate paganism. This is why I get a lot of shit too from mainstream occultists. These mainstream occultists who've managed to get involved with all the big tech conferences and everything, so they can talk about shamanic technologies. Which reminds me, I did an article on my Substack this week. I'll put in the links below, and it just dawned on me that I was at an event in America in 2019. I wasn't speaking, I was a punter just on the audience about these shamanic technologies, and it was all MIT and IT Harvard people, and it was all total transhumanism. And so this thing of ayahuasca and all that, that's what that's all been for from day one. Day one, turn the spirit molecule into zeros and ones and upload you to the cloud. So be very wary of anyone using terms such as shamanic technologies, or even using that kind of technology clandestine in operational workings in the occult. I mean, I use technology, like for instance, I've taken kitchen witchery or kitchen folk magic to the next level using microwaves and things like that. So that's an interesting one. Again, you do that on camera, you're fucked. Well, we all remember one demented wagon who did that with a food mixer, and yeah. So it's always in secret. It's always in private. The bog is a solitary place. You stupid fucks, and. So, like a lot of these cosplay big time occultists who seem to get on all the TV shows and everything and get invited to all the big, tech events and stuff. Those types. If they're using any kind of technology to clandestine hex people or control people, what's black magic? Control persons against their will. But anyway, so yeah, so I'll put that arc below. It's getting a lot of traction, and it should do because it kind of like one of those things that was simmering on the outskirts of my consciousness, and then suddenly it's come into full view, and how important it is. But paganism, because I'm probably Ireland's most powerful pagan. And I don't mean in a powerful way I mean powerful like in ability to reach to most people, because I don't dress like fucking Wurzel Gummidge, and I don't carry a staff and go around talk about my mighty Odin it wrought, or that kind of shit. I'm a regular fellow dresses in normal clothes. I can reach people. Paganism is very, very bad for the globalists, because pagans don't have a rule book. There's no book of rules, and if there is a book of rules, if you know anyone who it calls themselves a pagan and suddenly brings up a list of rules of do's and don'ts, who is and who isn't, and run a fucking mile because they're not pagans, and they never be pagans or mental like that. I mean, pagans are they don't have a rule book. That's what makes it so powerful. But also that makes you a target for the globalists, and the globalists are very famous for taking mentally ill people. This is what the intelligence services do. This is why a lot of these gurus and these occult shamanic types in the mainstream, nearly all of them are like the UFO crowd, the ancient aliens crowd. Nearly all of them are MI5, if not openly clandestine, DARPA, that kind of thing. And I actually think now, because they failed with the needlecraft, they thought they were really going to get the thing where people would submit to a needlecraft, they wouldn't be able to travel. I think they've given up on that one, and then we're going to move now to try an ayahuasca. And they have all the middle class saying, "Oh, I tried ayahuasca, and it can help cure my depression." I, my productivity at work has gone up greatly since I've been microdosing on mushrooms. When it reaches the middle classes, someone has an agenda at hand. So be very careful. Things like Burning Man were gigantic experimental places for all this stuff, and all that kind of thing. So you need to be very, very careful. You need to be very careful. These are, they do want these things, but when they fail at one, they shift to another. And I'm convinced they've gone from needlecraft, and also because of the people who are dropping dead from needlecraft. They're going from needlecraft to psychedelics. Now, you know me, I'm not anti-psychedelics. I take them and everything, but I'm extremely wary of them. In fact, years ago, I made a video on this or the other channel about, the entheogen psyop. And you want to see all these middle-class types all saying, "How dare you? Who are you?" And you can see already there was an agenda unfolding there. Speaking of which, today is the 10th anniversary of the first Velocity of Now episode. Nick, my old buddy Nick from Type 1 Radio down in Brighton in England, who was the producer of the first show, posted the very first episode today from 10 years ago. Think about that. And so that was 10 wonderful years that allowed me to um, you know, you know, hone my craft as a broadcaster, so to speak. Though I think I was pretty good from day one, but I don't mean to be in that way. I think I'm a natural communicator. I'm gifted with that. The gods have looked after me that way, and I'm very grateful for it and humble. But yeah, so that 10 years of VONs, can you believe that? It's not gone. It's just I'll only do them as a special thing now and again. And who knows, down the road, if I ever retire from doing this stuff as actively as I am, I might go back to regularly doing VONs, and that'd be a nice way to finish out my twilight days. 10, 15, 20 years down the road, that would be a nice way to do that. Because yeah, that would be so. The VON will always be here as long as I am. But it's like a fine wine now. It has to be savoured. And yeah, so thank you anyone who listened to the first one or the fifth one or the 400th one, and you're still here. Well, thanks for being here. It's been a hell of a a hell of a lot of fun for me, meeting so many wonderful and fabulous people. So that's really all I have to say today. If I think anything more, I'll let you know. And if you haven't seen the article on shamanic technologies, it's in the comments right now. And as ever, look after yourselves. Feck 'em if they can't take a joke. Sanwine Gnosis. Ave Lucifer and long live the Horn Gods. And look after yourselves and enjoy your lives, and don't fall into despondency, and don't fall into hysteria, because when you're quantum entangled with someone else's lack of control, you're out of control as well. And that doesn't matter whether they're a guru or a globalist or some fella you fancy at work. Just maintain sovereignty. Love